This is a production of Cornell University.
Hello, my name is Kensy Rodriguez. I am a Ph.D. student at Cornell, and
I'm Chris Smart. I'm a vegetable pathologist at Cornell.
And today we are at a cucumber field. And this is specifically cucumbers. So Chris, what do we have here? Why does this plant look like they are like wilting or dying?
Yeah, so this plant is dying. You're exactly right. And let's try to figure out what the issue is. So we can see that there's just a lot of browning of the leaves, and it just doesn't look healthy. You can see there's a lot of wilt as well. And when you look around the plant, you'll also see some of these bright yellow cucumber beetles. Now, sometimes those beetles have stripes, black stripes on them. Sometimes they have spots. So there's the spotted cucumber beetle and the striped cucumber beetle. But both of them transmit a bacterial disease. The name of the disease is bacterial wilt. The name of the bacterium is called Erwinia trachiophila.
Do all the beetles can have the bacteria in them? So if I see one beetle, I will have the disease on my cucumber beets?
No, and in fact, the bacterium is inside the beetle, and when the beetle feeds on the plant, that's when the bacterium moves into the plant and gets into the veins and clogs the veins of the plant. But the beetles actually overwinter in the soil, and if it's a really cold winter, more get killed off, and you won't see as much bacterial wilt the next year. But if it's a warmer winter, then you won't lose as many cucumber beetles in the wintertime, and then it'll be a much worse year. Not every cucumber beetle will have it, but as soon as one plant gets infected, then other cucumber beetles that visit it can pick up the bacterium and spread it to other plants.
So Chris, you mentioned that the colder weather is, the less cucumber beetles we will see because they will get killed off. So are things like plastic mulch or any other type of mulch that provide like warmer temperatures will help the cucumber beetle to survive, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, most people will pull up the plastic mulch in the winter anyway. So plastic mulch is actually great. The problem with raised beds and plastic mulches with cucurbits is that, as you can see right here, the fruit fall off of the plastic of the raised bed, and they end up in the lower area where they might be sitting in water if it's a real wet summer like we've had this year.
So Chris, as you also said that the cucumber beetles feed on the plant, is there a specific part of the plant that they have to feed on or use in order to transmit the disease?
No, so they don't. They can feed on any part of the plant. A lot of times you'll see them inside the flowers, and that's not going to be where they're transmitting the most. They'll when they get into the vein tissue, that's when they're going to transmit the bacterium into the vein. And it can be a leaf, it can be a stem, it can be the crown, it can be any part of the cucumber plant. And sometimes in a cucumber plant, actually you'll see like, oh, half the plant is really wilting and the other half isn't. And that's probably because the cucumber beetles fed on one part of the plant and the bacterium hasn't gotten to the crown or the other side of the plant yet. Speaking of the crown, do you mind if I pull this up?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what it looks like. So one of the things that you can tell the difference between bacterial wilt and some of the other root rotting diseases is that you'll still have fairly decent roots. If you look here, when I pulled it out, there's still a decent root system in this incredibly wet soil because it's been very wet this year.
Yeah.
If it were Pythium, you might see the roots be really, really degraded and the outer cortex might slough off. If it were perhaps a Fusarium, they might be kind of pinkish. But in this case, what you see is that the crown just is looking incredibly unhealthy. And if I can break it open, sometimes it'll even look yellow or watery on the inside. And that's just a sign of bacterial wilt. But a classic test for bacterial wilt is that people will cut the plant at a crown or at a stem and put that stem into a glass of water. And within a minute, you'll actually start to see the bacteria streaming out of the bottom. And you think about this poor plant, it's like its veins are just completely clogged with the Erwinia bacterium, so much so that if you put it in a glass of water, the bacteria will just start streaming out.
Is this how the plant look like whenever the disease is just starting off, or we will see like what will be the earlier symptoms that we see and that we can detect?
Yeah, so the earliest symptoms are going to be wilting. With bacterial wilt, it doesn't get quite as yellow as you might see with a disease like cucurbit yellow vine decline. It doesn't get nearly as yellow, and you see wilting first. The thing is that on a hot summer day, you might see wilting in the afternoon, and then the next morning it doesn't look wilted at all. Mm-hmm. And so you think, oh, it was just hot out, the plants got wilty, and it's okay. That could be a first sign of bacterial wilt. The other thing it could be is that there's a disease, Phytophthora, caused by Phytophthora capsicii, whole different type of pathogen, and that can also attack the crown and cause that same symptom. So it can be really tricky to differentiate between some of the many diseases that we have on our cucumbers here in New York.
So what will be your recommendation, whether to diagnose the disease and also a management technique that you recommend?
You can, do the put the stem in the glass test to see if there's bacterial streaming, and you can also don't send the whole plant, but you can send a portion of the plant, say from the roots up to maybe a foot, to your diagnostic lab, and they can tell you really relatively quickly if it's bacterial wilt or not. In terms of control strategies, controlling the cucumber beetle is really the best way to go. And that can be hard to do in a year when there's a lot of beetle pressure. Another researcher at Cornell is doing a super cool study that looks at using low tunnels that are maybe this tall to cover up the plants when they're young. And that way, it's like a row cover, but it gives the plants a little more height. They're called mesotunnels. Mm-hmm. And that actually prevents the cucumber beetles from getting to the plants when they're young, and that's when they'll do the most damage. So we're really excited to see what Dr. Sarah Pethybridge finds out there.
Are there also some varieties that are like less attractive to the beetles maybe?
Yes, absolutely. And plant breeders have been working really hard to find plants that are resistant to the beetle. So far, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any resistance seen to the actual bacterium that's in the veins of the plant, but there is resistance to the beetles. And it's absolutely true that cucumbers and melons are more susceptible to this disease than the other cucurbits.
And that is because maybe the cucumber beetle are more attracted to this plant?
Yeah. Certainly, yep.
Okay, so thank you so much, Chris. So if you want more information, you can look or reach out to the Cornell vegetable website. Thanks, Chris.
Have a great day.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.